Hello and welcome to my channel. Say hi to a happy day. In this channel, I would like to share tales and stories I personally picked and or my kids' favorite stories. Let's enjoy listening while I read to you the story of the Steadfast Tin Soldier. There were once 25 tin soldiers. They were brothers, for they had all been made out of the same piece of tin. They each stood tall and looked straight ahead and wore a splendid red and blue uniform. The first thing in the world they ever heard were the words, "Tin soldiers." The words were uttered by an excited little boy who clapped his hands in delight when he opened the lid of the box in which the soldiers lay. They were a birthday present. The little boy set them up on the table. They were exactly alike, apart from one who only had one leg. He had been made last, and there was not quite enough melted tin to finish him. So they made him stand firmly on one leg, which made him quite remarkable. The table on which the tin soldiers stood was covered with other playthings, but the most attractive was a pretty paper castle. Through the small windows and rooms could be seen. A number of trees stood in front of the castle, around a small mirror which was intended to represent a lake. This was very pretty, but the prettiest of all was a tiny little lady standing near the open door of the castle. She was also made of paper, and she wore a dress of sheer gauze with a narrow blue ribbon over her shoulders like a scarf. On her dress was fastened a glittering tinsel rose as large as her face. The little lady was a dancer. She stretched out both her arms and raised one of her legs so high that the little tin soldier could not see it at all. And so he thought that she, like himself, only had one leg. "This is the wife for me," the tin soldier thought. "But she is too grand and lives in a castle. I only have a box to live in, with 25 of us all together. That is no place for her. But still, I must try and make her acquaintance." The tin soldier laid himself out at full length on the table behind a snuff box so that he could peep at the delicate paper lady, who continued to stand on one leg without losing her balance. When the evening came, the other tin soldiers were all placed in their box, and the people of the house went to bed. Then the playthings began to have their own games together. They paid visits, wrestled, and went to balls. The tin soldiers rattled in their box. They wanted to get out and join the fun, but they could not open the lid. The nutcrackers played leapfrog, and the pencils jumped around the table. There was so much noise that the canary woke up and began to quote poetry. With all this activity, only the tin soldier and the dancer remained in their places. She stood on tiptoe, her legs stretched out as firmly as the soldier stood on his one leg. He never took his eyes off her, even for a moment. Then the clock struck 12, and with a bounce, up sprung the lid of a snuff box. Instead of snuff, a little goblin jumped up, for the snuff box was a prank. It was really Jack-in-the-Box. "Tin soldier," said the goblin, "don't wish for the impossible." But the tin soldier pretended not to hear. "Very well, wait until tomorrow then," said the goblin. The next morning, the children placed the tin soldier in the window. Now, whether it was the goblin's magic or the wind, it is not known, but the window flew open, and out fell the little soldier, head over heels, from the third story into the street. It was a terrible fall, for he came down head first, and his helmet and bonnet were stuck between the stones with his leg in the air. The maid and the little boy went down to try and find him, but he was nowhere to be seen. Soon it began to rain. The drops fell faster and faster until it was a heavy shower. When it was over, two boys came along, and one of them said, "Look, there is a tin soldier. He should have a boat to sail in." They made a boat out of newspaper and put the soldier in it. The boys sent the boat down the stream of rainwater in the gutter, while they ran alongside clapping. The waves in the gutter were very high, and the stream rolled along quickly. The boat rocked up and down and spun around so quickly that the soldier trembled. But his expression did change. Suddenly, the boat shot into a tunnel, and it was as dark as the tin soldier's box. "Where am I going now?" thought the soldier. "I am sure this is the goblin's fault. If only the little lady were here with me, I should not mind the darkness." Suddenly, a water rat who lived in the train appeared before him. "Where is your passport?" asked the water rat. "Show it to me at once." But the tin soldier stayed stiff and silent. The boat sailed on, and the rat followed, crying out, "Stop him!" The stream rushed on stronger and stronger. Now the tin soldier could see daylight ahead, and he heard a roaring sound loud enough to frighten the strongest man. At the end of the tunnel, the drain emptied into a canal down a steep gutter, which was as dangerous for him as a waterfall was for a person. The boat rushed on, and the poor tin soldier could only hold himself as stiffly as possible, without moving an eyelid to show he wasn't afraid. The boat was swept over. It twirled around 3 or 4 times and then filled with water. Nothing could stop it from sinking. The tin soldier was up to his neck in water as the newspaper became soft and loose, until at last the water closed over his head. As he sunk, he thought of the elegant little dancer who he would never see again. The boat fell apart, and the soldier plunged down into the water. But immediately afterwards, he was swallowed up by a large fish. Oh, how dark it was inside the fish's belly! It was darker and narrower than the tunnel, but still the tin soldier stood firm. The fish swam to and from, but eventually it became quite still. After a while, a flash of light seemed to pass through it, and then daylight appeared. A voice cried out, "Oh, I do declare, here is the tin soldier." The fish had been caught, taken to market, and sold to the cook. They placed him on a table. How strange it was to be in the same room with the same children, the same playthings, the same table, and the pretty castle with a pretty dancer at the floor. She was still balancing on one leg, as unrelenting as himself. It moved the tin soldier so much to see her that he almost wept, but he held back. He looked at her, and they both remained silent. Suddenly, one of the boys picked up the tin soldier and threw himself into the stove for no reason. The flames lit up the little tin soldier, and the heat was terrible. But whether it was from the fire or from love, he could not say. He looked at the little lady, and she looked at him. He started to melt away, but he remained steadfast with his arms at his side. Suddenly, a draught of air picked up the little dancer. She fluttered like a fairy right into the stove by the tin soldier's side. She instantly burst into flames and was gone. The tin soldier melted down into a lump, and the next morning, as the maid was cleaning out the stove, she found him melted into the shape of a little thin heart. Nothing remained of the little dancer but the tinsel rose, which was burned as black as a cinder. The end. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story of the Steadfast Tin Soldier. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to listen for more of our favorite stories. See you soon!